Thank you so much for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Today on the program, we'll be taking a look at a very important topic. Every January 4 is celebrated as World Braille Day. And of course, it is a day set aside to highlight the importance of Braille in promoting inclusion, literacy, and independence for persons living with visual impairment. The situation shouldn't be different in Nigeria, but we do know there are many challenges, especially for people living with visual impairment. Today on the program, we'll be spotlighting visually impaired Nigerians and their access to Braille. Of course, the theme for this year's International Braille Day is accessibility, inclusion, and digital literacy. A guest is joining us via Zoom today is Yinka Olaito. He is a disability inclusion advocate. Thank you so much, Yinka, for joining us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Mrs. Bello. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Let's start this way. Taking a look at the theme for this year's celebration and the quest for digital literacy and digital skills, how apt is the theme for this year's commemoration of the Braille Day?
I think it is important that we understand the global trend where everything is going digital.
Right.
And if we're not going to be left behind, we cannot be far from what the truth about this team is saying. But the fact is, for visually impaired person in Nigeria, is still a long way to freedom, because most of them are not knowledgeable. We have over 1.3 million Nigerians with visual impairment, and the level of literacy in that population is very, very, very low. Even from literacy, and I mean the ability to read and write, because what it takes to read and write and to access the digital platform is not always there.
Okay.
And also given the fact that acquiring the Braille is not within the
means, the means.
What I would say within the what they can afford.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to use the right word. Within the means of an average visually impaired person.
Right.
And it is not because it's not because they don't want to, but the money is not there. Let me give you an instance. An average computer that will cost like 200, 350 for it's person, it will be higher in the efficient person. So of acquiring this digital whatever is not within the reach. Don't forget that especially, and therefore it is good to raise awareness, because there's a sort of what it did. As a that one was named after the inventor, is to create awareness of the person with visual impairment across the, and they need not to be left behind.
All right, Mr. Olaito, we seem to be having a little bit of connection issues with you. We'll probably need to take a quick break and see if we can re-establish contact with you so we can have a smooth conversation. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned. Of course, we needed to take that break for a little bit of housekeeping. We're back now, and our guest is still with us via Zoom, Yinka Olaito, and we're talking about the International Braille Day, a spotlight on visually impaired Nigerians. Coming back to you, Yinka, you were actually explaining to our viewers how inaccessible visually impaired people have to Braille, especially because it is not quite affordable in Nigeria. Based on that, would you say that this is a great disservice to people with visual impairment and their usage of the Braille?
It all depends. It all depends. Because if we say it's a great disservice, why would we say that? Well, we know that if you look at it from this angle of communication, Braille is the only way through which they can read and write. So it can be a great disservice for them for not having it. But on the other side, when you look at the economy, the impact of the financial situation globally is affecting prices. But the fact remains that government should, the whole world is moving towards leave nobody behind. That means that there must be a commitment from the part of government and caregivers to invest in their children or their relatives who are visually impaired. So it can be a great disservice because you are denying them the opportunity to be able to communicate with the rest of the world and to learn and to acquire knowledge. But at the same time, when you look at what the prices and the economy across the globe is saying, or the trend, we might say that, well, somebody has to take responsibility, and that means there's a great disservice for them. The fact remains that if there had been enough government commitments in driving that engagement and involvement of person with disability, person with visual impairment, I think we will have moved faster. Because even before now, if you go to average school, school for the blind that we call them, but we call them visual impairment. If you go to average school, you find out that you have few numbers that cannot go round. In fact, a friend was telling me that he wanted to study law in one of Nigerian universities and is technically blind, that is, he cannot see at all. And the department said, except you can buy your own Braille or you can buy your own machine.
Right.
Should that be his responsibility? And therefore, you have to go and beg somebody. Otherwise, the school said, even though we want to take you, but we don't have what it takes to accept you.
Right.
And these are some of the challenges that we see every day. And we have noticed, unfortunately, that school came out straight. Some schools will be silent about that. But the fact remains that we have national policy on inclusive education that should have taken care of such things like this. Unfortunately, we are nowhere to be found in those in that area in implementing most of those things that we have on policy.
Right, Yinka, as a disability inclusion advocate, we do know that year in, year out, of course, January 4 is set aside to mark International Braille Day. And I'm sure that after this conversation, everybody will, retreat to their cocoon and life continues. What do we need to start doing to ensure that such conversations are escalated and sustained and not only addressed every January? And after the celebration of the International Braille Day, we all forget about the plight of these people.
I'm so concerned and pained to see that oftentimes we concentrate on the reform fair. It's like people who want to get married. They concentrate on the marriage dates, not knowing that beyond that marriage date or the ceremony, there are years and activities that will follow such things.
Right.
Oftentimes, government caregivers, we just want to make the noise and leave it. Unfortunately, we just scratch the problem of visually impaired person without attending to anything. I think that what we need to do beyond the frontier, which is for me is important, is a commitment from all the stakeholders. It is not only from government but government has to drive that commitment, because without that commitment, it is very, like I said, outbreak caregiver may not be able to afford the Braille and what it takes to actually, they are very unique.
Right.
If you are a mobility impaired person, at least you can see, and then you can use other gadgets that other people are using. But because of their visual impairment, And one thing we need to understand is, as we grow old, our eyes begin to reduce in their
Visibility,
functionality.
right.
And visibility. And that's why we must all think, when we have the opportunity to make a commitment to invest into this thing, because our eyes begin to go dim a little. By the time you are 60, 70, no matter how good you are, it's either you are short-sighted or you are long-sighted. So I think we need a commitment. It is beyond, we should go beyond the policy. Like I said, we have enough policy in Nigeria. National Inclusion
Policy.
National Policy on Inclusive Education is there, and several other policies that is there. We have a case now. There's this woman that she applied to study to improve her knowledge as a licensed nurse. And she applied to a federal school, and she wanted to become a mental health nurse. And she told them in advance. That means that what I'm trying to say is that we need to make reasonable accommodation, and we need to teach people what reasonable accommodation, what does it mean for an average school, average workplace, and all of that. Because when you ask average employer or school or hospital, what is reasonable accommodation, they do not know.
Right.
We need to reorientate people, the community, the society, about what reasonable accommodation means. So it leads me to this issue of this issue that we're making noise about, DJ Olivia. She's a licensed nurse, but unfortunately 2 years ago, she was diagnosed with optic atrophy, which means that our facial nerves will begin to, our face will be, as level of sight will begin to reduce little by little, and therefore there's a large extent to what she can see. So when she applied for this school, I said, okay, please make reasonable accommodation. I'm not sure that the school even know what reasonable accommodation means for her. She said, she gave them 3 options. It's either you make my own question paper very bold print so that I can see, or you get me somebody who can read the question for me, or at least give me extra time. These are reasonable accommodation.
Right.
People don't know what reasonable accommodation. So she got to the school, she wanted to write the exam, and the provost was looking at her, and there's something I was looking at. When you apply, why did you apply? That is the level of
stigmatization
that the society still have now.
Right.
So I'm saying that we must educate the people about reasonable accommodation, and we must all be committed to ensuring that they are well integrated into the society.
I like where you've taken this conversation too, meaning that awareness is also very key when it comes to when it comes to dealing with visually impaired individuals. Who are those? I know that you are an advocate, but also who are those that should join your cause in championing this awareness? So again, if people do not know how to treat certain individuals, they might hide under the ignorance of not knowing and mistreat people, even though under the law, in law, ignorance is not an excuse. But how intentional should the society be at knowing the plight of these people? Because you've just said reasonable accommodation. My first thought was probably accommodation where she'll be staying or where she'll be living on campus. So, I mean, you've now explained it like she wanted to be treated, especially to be given, she gave 3 options that she could actually write her examination. But for people who do not know, how then do they key into the plight of these individuals? So who should champion the cause of this awareness we're talking about?
At the federal level, we have Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, under which issues of social inclusion is embedded. At the state level, we have Ministry of Women and Social Inclusion, or sometimes it's under Youth and Development. And under that, Youth and Development, in Lagos State is under Youth and Development. And at the state level, we also have what is called disability agencies. In Lagos, it is called LASODA. In some other places, it is called, in Lagos, it's called LASODA, Lagos Office of Disability Affairs. So, in all the states in Nigeria, almost all the states have agencies like that, that is specifically to address issues like that. beyond that, in 2024, there was another law that says that at every local government, there must be an appointed person that is called Special Assistant on Disability to the chairman of the local government.
Okay.
So at a different level, the special assistants to the disability to the local government chairman, their role is to educate at the grassroots level, to educate the chairperson, policymakers, and schools about reasonable accommodation, not only for the visually impaired person,
okay,
all manner of person with disability, because each of them has different need and different reasonable accommodation.
Right.
So well, unfortunately, I'm not sure that all the states are compliant, but I know that just as has appointed all the special assistants to the chairman in every local government with 33. In fact, unfortunately, again, Ogun State did not even have a disability commission or disability law. Lagos has, but I'm not sure whether they are already appointed. Because that is how to actually get to the roots of
the grassroots.
Majority of visually impaired persons are in the grassroots.
Right.
They can't afford to be in the city, except you are born to a parent that is very rich and very knowledgeable and all of that. So I think that if we're going to create awareness and make the necessary progress, the role of special assistants to disability to the chairman of all the local government is really important in educating the public at the grassroots level.
Okay.
And then we also have non-profit organizations who are supposed to do this at the state level. Ministry of Youth and Development or Ministry of Women and Social Inclusion have that role. At the federal level, the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs can also do that.
Okay.
And at large, Nigeria Orientation Agency is there to educate people on some of these needs. But I think that our policy about inclusion is still far from what it should be.
Right. Even though we're talking about Braille today, but in your own opinion, what are some of the other challenges that visually impaired people face in Nigeria? As much as you know, it is not easily accessible to them, talking about the Braille. What are some of the other challenges that you've seen that they face, especially in education, employment, and everyday living?
Yeah, there's not even only in education, even in health. You see, majority of our institutions are not prepared to take care or to attend to their needs.
Right.
Because, like I said, lack of awareness, lack of knowledge. This is very vital. And therefore, okay, I was talking to a visually impaired person, a consultant with World Bank, and he said that he was looking for accommodation. And then, he could avoid it because he's well-read and he has a PhD. And then he was looking for accommodation. And the first thing the landlord or the owner of the house told him was, who will be paying this? If I give you now and you are able to pay for 1 year, who will be paying? And he said that he felt insulted by that kind of thing. Because he's able to pay. And then another thing that the man was talking to his wife and he's not talking to him. He said that he was the one that's going to pay. Why is he talking to my wife? Understanding their need. Sometimes we just want to help out of sympathy.
Right.
An average visually impaired person does not need sympathy. You need to ask them what they need. Because we always assume that they need help. It's not every time they need them.
Right.
For instance, let me tell you, if you want to cross the road, you just see a visually impaired person who want to cross the road. You just grab his hand and push him. You need to ask, do you need help? Can I help you? How do I help you? These are questions that you need to ask, not just grab. And then if the person says, why did you grab me? Say, we are even trying to help you. But it might just need somebody to say, okay, a car is coming, be careful, and all of that. He'll be able to maneuver his own way. So sometimes the sympathy, the charity approach is not helping. We need to understand that because the society has this charity approach to every person who is visually impaired or a person with disability. We need to go to the right-based approach where human right is the factor that we consider. That like in education, the law is very clear. They have right to education. They have right to health. They have right to accommodation. For every person, like I told you, an average landlord or house owner, when you hear that this person is a visually impaired person, your thought is, how will he be able to pay?
He'll be a liability.
So there are quite a lot of things. Yeah, so we have this approach of charity, or somebody who is, unfortunately, for majority of visually impaired persons in the villages or in the rural setting, because they are not educated, because they do not know their rights, they present themselves as beggars. And when you have that attitude, people will maltreat you. It is normal. Okay. Because you have that attitude. So what we need to do is, all the agency of government and NGOs that are championing this cause need to raise more awareness. And the media, this opportunity is also good. The media has to do something vital about real, because the gap that media can fill is very, very vital in shift narration, in storytelling, that when you see a visually impaired person or a person with disability, whatever the
disability
is, it is not about, they are not less human than the other person.
Right.
And they have the capacity, they have the ability to excel if you help channel their potential to be the best. So today, I must let you know that the governor of Akwa Ibom State is a person with disability, is a person with ability. If he had not been, if the society continued to look at him like that, his parents did not take care of him, he did not get the right orientation, and he's not enforcing. See some of the things the guy is doing.
Right.
I follow him now. He's the first state that is giving senior citizens, he said he will be giving them 15,000 because he understood what it means. Because at that age, your strength is going lower and lower, and all of that. You are becoming like a disabled person, so to say, at that age, because there are things that are not functioning the way it used to function. Like we were sharing, it is important for us to understand, it must be a stakeholder or multi-level approach to shift the narrative and to ensure that person with visual impairment get the right
care and attention. Right. Let's quickly go back to the home front, because issues of acceptability can also be a problem. And so what do you have to say to parents this morning who are also dealing with accepting the facts that their children are visually impaired or are dealing with visual issues, and how much of attention should the parents also accord to those children, and see also how they can have access to to education, quality education, and assistive tools when necessary?
Yeah, like we said, charity begins at home. The society is not even helping better, though the things are changing. A person with a technically blind child, technically blind child means that it cannot see at all. Because you can have a child that has low vision or minimal vision, you are still a bit proud. The society does not look at a parent with that kind of a child, and they look with them with pity. And because of that, it's becoming so a bit of concern to such caregiver and the parent to bring that child out like every other child that they have. So we need to, within the society, change the narrative about person with visual impairment. They are human. It's just unfortunate that something happened, maybe at birth or something, they lost their sight, and they may not be, and some, they may not be able to see till the end of their life from back. There's nothing they can do about it. So accepting responsibility, accepting the challenge that this is, everybody has one challenge or the other that they face in life. Accepting and developing a strong will to actually say, oh, it is part of life, and it has happened, it has happened. I must move on with life. With this child will become somebody. We have seen quite a lot of visually impaired persons. Steve Jobs and all of them are example today. We have a musician in Nigeria that is doing well, Cobham and all of that. What we need to do is the right orientation, the strong will to actually pursue the best for that child. But more importantly, like I said, because the cost of raising a visually impaired person, Braille and Co. is very high, government must show leadership.
While we're speaking, I just did, a quick search on the average cost of a Braille machine in Nigeria, and I can see between 850,000 to 2 million, depending on the range,
exactly.
be it manual.
It's around 1 million.
Yes, be it manual or
it's around 1 million.
Around 1 million. And again, I'm looking at affordability. You mentioned that earlier. And so how much of corporate responsibility does this really put on Nigerians who are well-to-do, wealthy individuals, to also help maybe in some kind of donation to inclusive schools or schools for the blind, and not leave this only at the beck and call of government?
Yeah, like I said, I think that if government can, there are strategies that other governments, Germany, Japan, are actually employing in this area. They ensure that any corporate organization that is giving job or supporting a person with disability, they give them a level of tax rebate to do this more.
Okay.
So if you have things like that, it may be easier because now we're not in a new tax regime. You are going to pay tax and there's nothing to support my ability to give into these people. It becomes really difficult. So I think that we should continue to encourage the government, but more importantly, I think that government should encourage philanthropists and good
willing
people who have the
Nigerians,
money and the means to support this. And the way you can encourage them is to give them
tax rebates, maybe tax rebates.
Exactly. To make sure that they are appreciated for giving out such things. Not that they will try to do it. In some other cases, I've seen, like take for example the issue of road construction. I've seen cases where a company wants to construct a bad road in their street, and the government is saying no because somebody had to apply that thing. Somebody had to sign a document for the construction of that. So we must come to a point where we are very open and transparent, and we ensure that everything we want to do in our policy support inclusion, support engagement and involvement of people with different disabilities, future employment is. So I also want to call on corporate organizations, if they can, like I said, I just don't want to mention the figure for you. I know that it's only between 1 million and 2 million.
Right.
How many people can afford that?
Right.
Now, give me an example that if the child is now in the rural setting, where the mother or the father is an average farmer,
where would they get that money?
50,000 a month. How do they acquire that kind of a thing?
That's
why it is important. That's why I say it's a deliberate step from the government to be able to show that it's either they are leading the trail in buying those things, or they are giving incentive to philanthropists, corporate organizations to heavily invest in Braille purchase for children with visual impairment, and not only children though. We have
adults as well.
Most of them can't even go to university, because the more you go, the more the demand. If you need a computer as a visual impaired person, the amount of your computer may be like 2.5 million, something that other people can get at 500 or 700.
Okay.
So
all right.
The higher you grow, the higher the bill that you
incur. We'll have to leave this conversation here, but in 30 seconds, I'd like for us to take a peep into the future. In your own opinion, by the time we'll be marking the 2027 edition of World Braille Day, what should have shifted in 30 seconds?
Yeah, I wish that some of these challenges that we have overcome them, or at least we have moved further, like 50% or 60%. It will not be a journey, it will not be one night stand or one night success, but we can make a shift. I hope by next year, government can between now and next year, government can take the strategic effort and put in place where Braille become affordable and is within common reach.
All right.
That would be my joy for everybody. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you for for speaking with us on the program today. Yinka Olaito is a disability inclusion advocate, and of course has spoken about what government and corporate organizations and individuals can do to at least look into the plight of visually impaired people and see how to make life easier for them with the Braille machine. Thank you so much again, Yinka. That's where we'll leave this conversation this morning. We'll take a quick break. When we return, Joy will be here with her Lagos conversation.